Already I can feel there's a real buzz around Washington right now. You can sense that there's a new leader in town, that he's a true one-off, a pioneer in business and in politics. Many people love him. Others love to hate him. But to us, he's just Peter. And Peter is the right person to help us work with President Trump and to take this special relationship from strength to strength.
Does the Prime Minister have full confidence in Peter Mandelson?
Mr. Speaker, let me start by saying the victims of Epstein are at the forefront of our minds. He was a despicable criminal who committed the most heinous crimes and destroyed the lives of so many women and girls. The Ambassador has repeatedly expressed his deep regret for his association with him. He's right to do so. I have confidence in him, and he's playing an important role in the UK-US relationship.
This is interesting, Mr. Speaker. He says the Ambassador has expressed full regret, but the victims of the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein have called for Lord Mandelson to be sacked. And just so the House is aware, in 2019, Jeffrey Epstein was convicted of child prostitution and sex trafficking that took place between 2002 and 2005. That is the precise period which Lord Mandelson called Jeffrey Epstein his best pal. Was the Prime Minister aware of this intimate relationship when he appointed Lord Mandelson to be our ambassador in Washington?
Mr. Speaker, as she and the House would expect, full due process was followed during this appointment, as it is with all ambassadors. The Ambassador has repeatedly expressed his deep regret. He is right to do so. He's now playing an important part in the US-UK relationship.
Mr. Speaker, I asked the Prime Minister if he knew. The fact that he didn't answer indicates that he probably did know. I wasn't asking a question about process, I was asking a question about his judgment. The Daily Telegraph reports today that while Lord Mandelson was Business Secretary, he brokered a deal with Jeffrey Epstein while he was Business Secretary, and that this occurred after Epstein had been convicted of child sex offences. Given this new information, does the Prime Minister really think it is tenable for our ambassador to remain in post?
Mr. Speaker, the relationship between the US and the UK is one of our foremost relationships, and I have confidence in the ambassador in the role that he is doing.
Mr. Speaker, I think it is embarrassing that the Prime Minister is still saying that he has confidence in a man who was brokering deals with convicted child sex offenders while sitting in government. That is a disgrace. This government has repeatedly refused to declare Lord Mandelson's full interests. And as part of the appointment, there will have been extensive government vetting, including details and timings of Peter Mandelson's dealings with Jeffrey Epstein. So will the Prime Minister publish all these documents, including those about his interests?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I say, full due process was gone through in relation to this appointment, as would be expected. As for the publication of documents, as she well knows, that's subject to a procedure which includes an independent element. Be subject to the usual procedure.
The Prime Minister cannot answer any questions. That is not the behaviour of someone who has full confidence. The Ambassador should be in the White House talking about how we respond to an incursion into NATO airspace. Instead, he is giving interviews about himself to The Sun. This is a man who already had to be removed from cabinet twice, and now we learned that he was brokering billion-pound deals with Jeffrey Epstein while Business Secretary. I didn't get a proper answer. He's talking about process. This is not about process. This is about judgment. Just last week, I told him that he should sack his Deputy Prime Minister. They all cheered and congratulated themselves. She was gone 2 days later. His phase 2 is broken, and he's got a totally new front bench. So I will ask him again, will he make sure that these documents are published, and will he actually instruct Peter Mandelson to publish all his correspondence with Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, She says the ambassador's been in the White House discussing NATO. He is, as we all are, with a number of international calls this morning and on Ukraine, as well as the attack in Doha yesterday. Mr. Speaker, I see she's finally catching up with the questions that she should have asked last week about the Deputy Prime Minister. In the meantime, Mr. Speaker, we have been opened up a new schools-based nursery. On Monday we had the Defence Industrial Strategy. On Tuesday we published NHS league tables to push up standards. We reopened Doncaster and Sheffield Airport yesterday, and today we've set out how we're repairing the concrete in our hospitals.
A load of waffle and whatabouting, Mr. Speaker.
Let me talk this through with you because it's important to appreciate what happened when, and I understand that. Obviously, the diplomatic post of American ambassador, really important post, and Peter Mandelson, before he was appointed, went through a due diligence process. That's the propriety and ethics team went through a process, and therefore I knew of his association with Epstein. But had I known then what I know now, I'd have never appointed him. Because what emerged last week were emails, Bloomberg emails, which showed that the nature and extent of the relationship that Peter Mandelson had with Epstein was far different to what I had understood to be the position when I appointed him. On top of that, what the email showed was he was not only questioning, but wanting to challenge the conviction of Epstein at the time. That, for me, went and cut across the whole approach that I've taken on violence against women and girls for many years, and this government's approach. On top of that, what emerged last week, on Wednesday evening late, were Peter Mandelson's responses to questions that have been put to him by government officials. I looked at those responses and I did not find them at all satisfying. And therefore, on the basis of those three things, the nature and extent of the relationship being far different to what I'd understood to be the position at the point of appointment, the questioning and challenging of the conviction, which, as I say, goes to the heart and cuts across what this government is doing on violence against women and girls, and the unsatisfactory nature of the responses from Peter Mandelson last week to the inquiries made of him by government officials, I took the decision to remove him.
You said that details emerged Wednesday afternoon, but from what we can work out, details were furnished to bits of the Whitehall machinery, the Foreign Office and Downing Street, quite a bit ahead of you defending Peter Mandelson on Wednesday at Prime Minister's questions. And people are scratching their heads saying, why didn't you, the Prime Minister, make more effort to make sure you were briefed on this? Were people briefing you properly? Were they acting on your behalf? Were they acting slightly on Peter Mandelson's behalf, maybe? Bits of the machine.
Well, let me deal with that, because it was only on Wednesday early evening that I knew the contents of the Bloomberg emails. It was only very late on Wednesday when Peter Mandelson replied to the questions that had been put to him by government officials. And it was on that basis that I took my decision that he should be removed. What I knew before PMQs was that there had been media inquiries. I didn't know the content of the Bloomberg emails. And I knew that questions had been put to Peter that he had not yet answered. And he hadn't answered them by the time it got to PMQs. There is, of course, a time lag in America, but I knew that there are questions that have been put to him, but I didn't know what answers he was going to give to those questions. That came later on Wednesday. And that's why, at that point, I gave the answer I did at PMQs, and that's the extent of what I knew at the time.
The FT did a report this summer on a JP Morgan report which suggested that Peter Mandelson had stayed at the New York townhouse of Jeffery Epstein in 2009 when he was de facto Deputy Prime Minister, and while the financier was imprisoned for soliciting prostitution from a minor. Do you think that Lord Mandelson, who is of course a close political ally of yours, has some questions to answer?
Jim, let me just first, on Peter Mandelson, look, and I do try to give pretty full answers in these sessions. I don't know any more than you do, and therefore there's not really much I can add to
what you already know, I'm afraid. And, that's simply the state of the affairs. Thank you, Jim.
The crux of this is not the friendship I had 25 years ago with Jeffrey Epstein. The crux of this is that so many hundreds of young women were completely trapped, powerless in a system that did not listen to what they had to say. I didn't hear their voices, other people didn't hear their voices, they were disempowered